I started working at the Fubby Corporation, 10 or so years ago. I got out of college. I was studying computer science, and they were just the first people to offer me a job. They were initially just an artificial meat company, and they still present themselves to the public as an artificial meat company, but as I've been working here as an information technology specialist, I've noticed some weird things, and just server oddities. Every computer here is running their OS and their own internal internet service, so nothing gets in, nothing gets out, which I always thought was weird, but I suppose company security is important. But recently I've come across some files and noticed some things that have been really disturbing me. The main thing I've noticed, I suppose, in the last 5 years of working here, is that I haven't been able to remember what I do here exactly during the day, which sounds ridiculous, but just something happens and I have an incredibly blurry memory of what happens here. So I started to document what happens here on USB drives, and so I can, if not remind myself, show to myself what's happening here. And what I've seen is, I almost don't even know, I haven't been able to feel anything almost, initially anyway, just from what I'm seeing. It's so bizarre and disturbing, but hopefully what's happening here isn't right, and I'm hoping to get it out there. I'm recording this internally. What you see here, this file, is entirely internal. It is a compilation of pre-existing files within the company, because I don't want to try to take anything out of their system, because they'd notice and start asking questions, and I fear for what would happen if they found out about what I'm trying to do. The first thing I want to show you, I suppose, is the thing that sort of tipped me off to this whole thing, which is specimen number 7. This, all I know, I've seen this is basically what I've seen in relating to this specimen, as they're called by the company, was incredibly shocking and disturbing, and is, as far as I know, the largest cover-up, one of the largest. There are others which I'll get to, in the company, in the history of this company. A huge failure, and is generally considered to be a huge black mark on the company's history. But to really understand what's happening here, we should go to specimen 1. As far as I can tell, there is some kind of, from what I've read in the internal documents, there is either a cloning, this is some cloning project, for what purposes I don't know, but they're being contained within these rooms that sort of emulate reality to keep them in check while they run their tests and their experiments. And these rooms are often of LED walls that play loops of highly edited, this sounds really bizarre, I promise I'm being genuine, of highly edited, mesmerizing almost, gameplay videos of video games, highly edited and incredibly attention grabbing and almost incredibly mentally draining to watch. They're just so hyper edited and they hurt my head when I see them. But they're specifically edited and made in such a way as to keep these people in a trance almost. I've documented on this channel some of what I've seen. So I've been able to scrape some of these videos without getting caught, but there are literally thousands of these that just play on loop, and it's something. This first specimen here is the source, is the first one, and is related to someone who's referred to as employee who I know, we'll get to him later, but there's a particular incident which I've documented here, which I think really tipped me off to what's happening. Basically, to cut a long story short, someone was kidnapped. As from what I can tell, someone has been taken, and a very primitive clone of them was made. They're broken down into 3 classifications based on intelligence. This first one was a total failure and was thus executed by the corporation. We'll get into they have an utterly callous disregard for their subjects, but we'll get into that. This was a total failure, but if we move on to the second specimen, there's some improvement, although this one again is a failed iteration, but not enough to be killed by the company. The next one, again, is alive. A difference in they improved and changed a lot of the physical attributes this time around. Still very low intelligence, but easily controlled, and as far as I can tell is the one that they most commonly run their experiments on, at least for the type 2 out of the type 2 specimens. If we move on to the next one, there's 16 here from what I can tell. If there's 16 I've been able to scrape, but there's definitely, just checking, there's 16, but for that I've been able to scrape, but as far as I can tell there are thousands more. Number 5 was the peak of the early cloning program. I'd say this is about 7-8 years ago when this begins, and is generally, they were executed out of fears. They breached, basically. There's some kind of breach. They went too far, basically, so they executed them. Specimen 5, in terms of intelligence, a mild improvement, was executed again for being an abomination physically, as you can see from the picture here. Specimen number 6 retained a lot of the attributes of the previous 2. A stubborn obsession with rock and roll music, like 70s, 60s. stuff to the point where they began to believe that they were themselves a rock star, which resulted in some interesting, from what I've been able to see, interesting scenes and discoveries in terms of these clones' abilities, like cognitive abilities in relation to sound and pattern recognition. Some of the stuff from this particular specimen is incredibly interesting. They're still alive, from what I can see, and yeah, the next one we've already talked about specimen 7. Specimen 8, deeply disturbing one. I really don't like thinking about just their particular something happened here. I haven't been able to scrape it, but they were executed by the company. They got on to specimen 9. This is possibly the most interesting, the most important one. They came about 4 or 5 years ago. The company, due to the pandemic, was able to close themselves off, to close their facilities off, and were given government funding to stay above water during the financial crisis that happened during the pandemic. But this basically gave them unlimited time and resources to conduct their experiments. I can't speak on any collusions with the government, but all I know is that they were given an abnormally larger amount of money than other companies in their field. Remember, this is still publicly facing an augmented, like artificial meat company. Sorry, I keep thinking, here's something. This is the closest they've come to making a real human, and is incredibly disturbing how close this is, while still being incredibly off the mark mentally, like cognitively, is still, I don't want to say an idiot, but they are really not up to par, considering how close they are to acting like a real human. It is really disturbing. They have an obsession with alcohol and partying. I'm not sure if they have any relation to the rock star specimen, but they do love partying, and they do love alcohol, and they do, from what I've read from other files, restless if not given alcohol. And some of the footage I've seen from these episodes are particularly intriguing. The next one was a continuation of this, a much more physique. They were really pinning down their human, what they call the human sculpting technology. Incredibly toned physique. However, slightly less like mentally there. Still, again, much closer to acting, less mentally there than the previous specimen. And an odd, the thing most interesting with this one, this is where they get into from what I've read, they get more into the trying to develop a sexual, for lack of a better term, understanding in these specimens. They develop an obsession with the cleavage of a character from the anime Bleach. It's bizarre. And then we move on to the next one, which again, an obsession, an almost compulsive addiction to masturbation. When I say addiction, this person just cannot stop. Even when in the company of others, they cannot help themselves. And they have been put on medicine to stop this from happening, but this has just resulted in cognitive decline. There also a decrease in vision. As you can see, their vision was markedly worse than the previous specimens, forcing them to wear incredibly thick glasses. The next specimen was when they started experimenting with female augmentation. Incredibly, this program, as far as I can tell, has been almost fairly total cognitive inability, from what I've seen, completely unable to keep up with the most simple tasks, incredibly short attention spans. As far as I can tell, this program has been all but shut down. All of the specimens that I scraped from this program have been deceased. As far as I can remember, I haven't been getting a lot of sleep recently. But yeah, incredibly disturbing read. The next one, specimen 15. I'm not sure what happened between specimen 14, specimen 13, and specimen 15. But yeah, this one is interesting. One of the videos I've uploaded here is called Fubbies FIFA 15. That was the file name. And there is a portion in this video where this particular character shows up. I'm not exactly sure what happened here. This is largely redacted. Haven't been able to track down this incident file, so I can't say what happened. I do know that it's not the same as specimen 7, where all records have been, it's very obvious what happened, even though there has been an attempt to clear the files of them. But something happened here. I'm not sure if it was more intense or deeper or more dangerous than the last one, but I cannot find anything on it except for the video. My theory is that there has been some kind of breach relation to this specimen that was documented in the video. I can't say for certain what happened, but I'm trying my best to find anything I can. Then we get to specimen 16. This is the current specimen, most untested. From what we can see, they get bored quite easily. I haven't been able to find much on them, if I'm being honest, except for what is said. Probably some interesting stuff is coming out of this line of experimentation, but I'll have to try my best to keep up with it. This is all I've been able to find now. I'm just hoping that some kind of official investigation to these people, because something really disturbing is going on, and it's gone beyond just my own personal search for. I don't care what's happening here. I just want it shut down. If hopefully this video ends in the right. And I would like to state now for the record that I am not suicidal. I'm deeply disturbed, but I am not suicidal. And if anything happens to me, I want a deep investigation to be opened up into these people. Thank you.